see
I'll
you.
let you know, I've got some of the folks, the sheriffs and everybody else who are just going to stay outside, just not in a firm. So at the right time, the sheriffs and things like that, we're going to want to come in and just support my bill.
Oh, okay. Which one was yours again?
I've got Senate Bill 13.
13, that's
So I
right.
just want to let you know that I'm going to have them outside just because it's a little tight right now.
Okay, yeah, I understand. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the hour has arrived, and we're going to get started here. Ambitious calendar today, but I think we can get through it. And I'm going to call on Chairman Smith, if he would, to lead us off with some prayer.
Y'all bow your heads with me. Lord Jesus, we come to you today thankful for everything that you do for us, most of all for giving us life, eternal life more abundantly here. Lord, we ask that you give us your discernment. Let us do things according to thy will here today, Lord. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right. I want to welcome Judge Stevens back with us today. Thank you for being here. But I especially want to recognize Deborah Nesbitt. Glad to have you back. All right. We're going to start out with Senate Bill 66. This is a real quick bill. This was brought back to us. We had the dates wrong on setting the time period for the judge to come into office, and it's just been adjusted to match what's in the budget for that position. So I don't need testimony or anything from the author, I guess. If you want to say anything, you can. Did I cover the subject well enough? Yes, sir. All right. All right. You may do so at this time. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Senator. All right. Let's see. Who's our next one? Let's get Tillery. Oh, Albers. Yeah. All right, if Senator Albers, if you'll come up. We have Senate Bill 13. Understand you have to be elsewhere, is that right?
I do. Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Kaplan to join me if that's
Sure,
okay.
that'll be fine.
And I'm ready. When you're ready, sir.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to present in front of this august committee. We have Senate Bill 13. This is going to allow our tax commissioners and sheriffs to do something crazy, which is use the internet. My hope is we'll drag us right into the 1990s once we get this done and allow them to conduct their auctions online. It's very straightforward, has the backing from all the parties involved, and it gives the sheriffs and the courts the discretion to choose the process of using this either online or in person. Obviously, they can continue to do things online. It allows them to really make this clear, because right now in the law there's a little bit of ambiguity. Is it legal or is it not legal? And we like to make sure there's certainty in something like this. Doesn't change any of the notice requirements we have today, so nothing is going to change there. They still publish it in the legal organ for 4 weeks prior to doing it. Makes it clear that any fee that is charged for judicial and tax sales may only be charged to the purchaser and at the time of sale, and it cannot exceed $250. It also ensures that fees cannot be charged on properties that are not sold. Bidders have to submit basic information to make sure we know that they are real legal people living here. So they'll submit their name, their address, their phone number, and a valid W-9 tax form. And it also requires that only Georgia residents or companies can register as bidders. So we'll have somebody from overseas. I know there were some concerns there. That will be the case, to comply with the existing tax withholding requirements. That's really Section 1 of the bill, which is a big part of the meat. And then on Section 2, the bill eliminates the reference in foreclosure statute and replaces it with the first Tuesday of every month between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. language. The effect of this is to ensure there's no impact on foreclosure sales, and that's a preference of the Bankers Association and the Mortgage Bankers Association. I want to thank them for their great work with us on this bill. In Section 3, the bill applies the same permissive language for the online sheriff's auctions and sales to be conducted by tax commissioners. So same, so we make it equal. They must have the same type of information again, name, address, phone number, and valid W-9, and only be Georgia residents or corporations. Section 4 of the bill, this is a slight change that we made in this sub that'll make it clear that sheriffs can conduct online sales in counties where the tax commissioner has not been designated the ex officio sheriff. That's to make sure there's nothing in waiting there. We actually know and identify who that person is. The sheriffs usually designate tax commissioners as their ex officio sheriffs, but some have not, and this just makes that language very clear. Again, an abundance of caution. So this is actually a pretty straightforward bill. It just modernizes where we are today. Ultimately, we want to help out everybody involved in the process. I want to thank Mr. Terry Norris and the Georgia Sheriff Association for their incredible work. We brought a lot of interested parties together to get a grand consensus, and for that, I would yield to any questions.
All right, we'll start over here. Representative Hong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chairman. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Just curious, how many other states are conducting these sales online currently?
That's a good question. I'm going to ask Mr. Kaplan if he knows off the top of his head. I do not.
Yes, ma'am. There are 20 states that are currently doing this.
Okay. And do you anticipate, and maybe looking at the other states that have started this, do you anticipate other companies from outside registering with our state and opening this up to more people, essentially?
So I'll give you two examples. In Pennsylvania, where this is conducted, less than 1% of the participants in the bidding process are out of state. And then in Texas, it's less than 7.8%. And the guardrails we added will additionally help with that.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I believe it also gives the opportunity for the folks that couldn't be there in person now to participate if something's happening literally right down the road had they been at work or somewhere else. Now they have the option to participate where they couldn't in the past.
Okay. Representative Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess we're expanding access to people who always have internet access, right? And I know y'all got it pretty much licked here in the metro area, but in rural Georgia, believe it or not, we have some areas that don't have internet access. So how do they handle it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So public libraries are a great place to do that. They are the ones that most prevalently will have internet access available, as well as internet cafes, Starbucks, McDonald's.
We don't have Starbucks in rural Georgia either.
No McDonald's?
We do, but that'd be
All
just as easy as going to the courthouse, wouldn't it?
Well, in some cases. But we'll let Mr. Kaplan answer part of that as well.
If I may, I would add that was why we intentionally made both sections of the bill completely optional for the sheriffs and tax commissioners. So your local tax commissioner and your local sheriff can make the decision about whether it's wise or not.
What percentage will these companies that y'all represent? What percentage will they get off conducting these sales?
So we specifically in the bill limit the fee to $250, and that fee can only be charged on properties sold. So if a property goes to auction and it's redeemed prior to sale, no fee can be charged.
Per parcel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I only have some more questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Who's got 5 over there? Representative Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this bill. I have one quick question. Currently in DeKalb County, if they were to use this option as the internet option, the DeKalb County Tax Commissioners does not require a W-9. So can you kind of explain to me what the purpose of a W-9 would be in this?
Certainly. So we want to make sure that somebody is not going to bid that may be not a Georgia resident or corporation, and this is to validate that we know who they are, and we're selling those, or they're bidding and getting it through auction through the right means.
I would also add that it's also for the redemption process, so that if somebody wants to redeem the property, they would have the ability to find the person who purchased the property.
Okay. And if I may ask a follow-up question, is this more for corporation? Because I don't know that many individuals that have the W-9s. So if someone that wanted to purchase, I just think it's a more difficult process to obtain a W-9 if you are not a corporation.
Actually, W-9s are used quite often in business. I own quite a few businesses and use both independents as well as large subcontractors. And W-9 is actually fairly standard, Representative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Vice Chair Reeves.
Senator, we're working off sub LC 393893S, and it's my understanding that you heard from some practitioners, from some lawyers who do this kind of legal work, and y'all incorporated revisions that were to their satisfaction in this substitute, right?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman. We worked with all the interested parties, and I think we've got everybody with a big thumbs up.
Thanks.
Representative Oliver.
I understand the bill is permissive. How many of the other 20 states are permissive versus mandatory?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I believe the vast majority are permissive.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other questions. We do have someone that wants to speak to the bill. Michael Mitchell, Sheriff's Association.
No testimony, just saying that we support.
You support? Okay.
Sheriff's
All right.
Association, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion by the committee? What's the will of the committee? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Got one opposed. The ayes have it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Thank you. All right. Chairman Tillery, if you want to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the House Judiciary Committee. Bring to you Senate Bill 74. It is a lawyer advertising bill. And what it basically says is that you have to tell the truth in that simple of terms. We do allow, the Constitution protects free speech. It allows for puffery. You can say that you're the best. But when puffery reaches falsity, I think it's created a distorted reality with what people view our justice system as being. We're lawyers. Many of you are lawyers. We're not folks who, dance on top of trucks or anything else. So that's what this is aimed at. It's aimed at being serious, making the law be serious. So what this bill does is it defines, first of all, you can't hold yourself out to perform legal services if you don't. On top of that, it lays out what your advertising not necessarily has to say, but what it can't say. You can't represent something that you can't do. You can't use folks who aren't your clients without talking about the fact they're not your clients. You can't lead in what the law actually says on what was line 91, but I know there's been a committee sub. It says that you have to present the facts with specificity. You can't present facts with specificity that would lead a reasonable person to conclude that the claim that they're bringing could be substantiated, but you can't do it. In other words, you just got to tell the truth. So that's what this bill does in its simplicity. It creates a civil cause of action if you were to violate that, $500 per time, per advertisement, and that's cleared up in your sub, and I appreciate Brock and the chairman and others who worked on making that be clear. And then it allows those to be aggregated and brought as a class should that be necessary. Again, if you're telling the truth, I don't think you're going to have a problem with this bill. Understand there may be a substitute to clarify language. I support that. I understand there might be another amendment, and if so, I understand I'm in a House committee, and you can do that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The LC you're reading from is 365585S.
I was reading from 365422, but I do understand that I was presented a copy of that, and I don't have it with me. I understand this just, from my reading on it earlier, just made the matters of the bill clear, and I'm perfectly fine with this LC.
Okay. All right. So you're familiar with it, though?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Is it Representative Bruce?
Thank you. So would this make that commercial one call, that's all, illegal?
I don't know that it would make it illegal, but somebody better not be calling twice.
I like it.
Representative Kelly.
But just wanting to memorialize me and Representative Bruce agreeing, I wanted to make a motion, and maybe he'll second it for us if I make it.
I want to move that we pass this one.
Well, I'll second his motion, then, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
but we're going to hold off for just a second. I got one more that wants to ask a question here. All right, is this Representative Holcomb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Tillery, a few years ago, I was flying and I sat next to the actor who plays Gary Martin Hayes. And so, with this in line 55 through 59, put him out of business because you actually have to be the attorney. Is that how I'm reading that?
I think you would at least have to disclose very clearly, and you're starting to see some of that on lawyer advertising now. I don't know if it's because we drafted this bill or not, that, right now they're putting it in 5-point font. We may come back later and say it has to be in 50-point font. I don't know. But it's not meant to put anybody out of business. It's just made to make sure that the value and respect that I know many of you place on the judicial system is also reflected in the media. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but when puffery leads to falsity, I think we start to distort reality. And we've hit that point.
Okay. Vice Chair Reeves.
I think I know the ad that you're talking about, Representative, but Gary Martin Hayes is in his present ads. He's a constituent. That's him. So his current ads would be fully compliant with this bill. He's local. He's licensed in Georgia. That's him on the commercials. So,
Okay, so we haven't slandered
I don't
Gary
want
Martin
him
Hayes.
to. I don't want him to be worried back in Gwinnett County. This bill will protect his current ads and his beautiful actual likeness.
And
That's right.
And Mr. Chairman, to Representative Holcomb's argument, I actually thought it was really funny. I was out of state at a conference for budget matters and saw the exact same person appear as somebody else. So if you've been out of state and seen ads, you've encountered this as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's all the questions I see. Do I go back to Representative Kelly?
I thought Representative Bruce may want to make it, but I'll second it if he does.
All right.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yeah. Does anyone have an amendment? Whip.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer an amendment, and the language that I'd like to insert is similar language to the Apex doctrine that the committee heard and the House heard on the floor. If it is accepted by the author as being the case, allowing us to insert this Apex doctrine language on the bill.
I don't want my bill to die, but if the members of this committee believe that that's, and I think it's already passed out of here once, then if y'all think that that's what y'all need to do, then I understand I'm in a House committee and I would not object.
All right. And that amendment is AM 360936?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. All right, hang on.
What's that? Do you want me to read the bill to you? I just want you to read the amendment. Oh. Well, the amendment is on your desk there. I can read the whole thing, but it may take a few minutes. So the Chairman Silcox, the language tracks the same language that we passed out with the Apex doctrine. The doctrine, but it's AM 360936.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask, and I think Whip Burchett may have just answered my question. Is it the same language as what we passed out of the House?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Chairman Smith.
Mr. Chairman, just want to second that amendment.
Do we have a motion? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Okay. Oh, okay.
I motion to amend the bill as such, adding this language to the bill.
I have a motion and a second. Let's see, we do have a motion. Any further discussion on that?
I do have an inquiry. It looks like it's drafted to keep in Chairman Tillery's advertising bill, it appears to me, and just in case there's any confusion, we are adding the Apex bill to the legal advertising bill. We're not replacing it.
That is correct. This is not replacing the language at all. This is just an addition.
Thanks for checking for me.
Representative Kelly.
I'll waive, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right. I believe I have a motion and a second to the amendment. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. We have the amendment. I believe I had the motion do pass. Any further discussion as to that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, bill passes.
Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good day.
Okay, we got 13.
Yep.
Senate Bill 103.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A farmer coming in front of a bunch of lawyers like this kind of intimidating, kind of like going in front of a firing squad. Mr. Chairman, would you mind if Josh Belafonte joined me up here?
Sure, he may join you.
All right, thank you.
See,
Senate Bill 103, the unclaimed property bill. Representative Vance Smith carried it last year. It passed out of the House. It passed, came to Senate Special Judiciary. We passed it out. It passed through rules and was ready to be called up, and it just didn't get called up on sine die the last day. But it addresses unclaimed property, as I said earlier. Georgia has not updated its unclaimed property laws since 1990. Outdated laws cause us to fall behind other states' efforts to return property. For instance, in Florida, they have a 59% claim rate. In Georgia, we're at 9%. 2022, as I said earlier, similar bill passed through the Judiciary Committee in the House. Went all the way up until sine die. This year it passed unanimously out of the Ag Committee. It passed unanimously out of the Senate. We've worked with the Department of Revenue on this bill, and it creates claimants designated representatives, third parties who register with the Department of Revenue. They have access to the Department of Revenue database of unclaimed property, solicit persons with unclaimed property, and we worked that out. That's one of the things that we did as well to make sure that if they sent out a solicitation and you wanted this big bold letters that says, that this, you don't have to use this service, but if you want to, you can. And so I know a lot of us here in this room, we would probably want to do that because of having to navigate the bureaucracy of it. Created license requirements. I put a cap of 30%, and that's negotiated, but it can't be any higher than 30%. It can be 10%. And the bill would become effective on July the 1st. I'll be glad to answer any questions. You all may remember this issue from last year, this language in this bill. Thank you for having me in front of you.
All right, what LC are you working from?
What LC numbers? I don't have it in my packet here. Here it is. It's what is it? Yeah, LC 550085S.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at, I got 51. Yeah. The reason I asked because when it becomes effective was January 1st, 2024 in ours, so in the bill we have.
No. Should be July 1, 2024. Yeah, there was a committee substitute prepared upon reaching agreement with
Can we
Department of Revenue.
get a copy?
So it may be 85S.
Yeah. We don't have that. Yeah, can we get copies of that? Oh, thank you.
Well, that was timely.
We'll stand at ease for just a minute, give everybody a chance to take a look at that. And it's coming around. You got a question?
I do.
Or hang on, Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They're general kind of questions, which is, first, do you have any sense of how much property, unclaimed property, we're talking about? And can you describe for us the type of property? Is it just money, unclaimed cash from Department of Revenue, or is it anything beyond that?
Sure. I'm Josh Bonfani with Robbins Government Relations, representing Choice Plus in this matter. It's a little bit of all of the above. So you can have things where safety deposit boxes will be unclaimed, and the contents will literally be in a warehouse run by the Department of Revenue. You can have stock certificates. Those stock certificates can be liquidated. Insurance policies, they can be liquidated. So in some cases, it's truly just commercial paper. In some cases, it's cash. And at a certain point, I think after 3 years, the department is authorized to liquidate the policy, the stock certificate, et cetera. So you have a little bit of all of the above. And our research shows there's about $200 million annually that comes in through unclaimed property.
So the business idea, as I understand it, is that we have around 9% claim rate, so a very low claim rate. A business will go in, they'll explore what's out there, what's unclaimed, then they'll contact these people with the notice inside the bill. They'll get some payment for that, which will be disclosed, and it's, in effect, in some ways a win-win, because these individuals didn't know that the property was even out there and existed. Is that a correct conceptualization of it?
Yes.
Okay. And how many companies do this besides the one that you're representing?
There's an association about it. I think there's at least a dozen. I mean, we're not talking hundreds, but we're not talking 4.
Okay.
So, at least a dozen within that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do remember this from last year, and I'm trying to look through the ads that were made by the Department of Revenue based on what y'all passed in the Senate. And I see, looking on kind of in Section 8, beginning on where we struck language, previously there's companies that can do this, right? That can help people assist in unclaimed property?
Currently, yes. I mean, individuals can, for example, if I know I have unclaimed property, I can, if I want to hire somebody, they can execute a power of attorney for me and talk to the Department of Revenue that way if I'm not doing it myself, and go through the process of proving I am who I say I am.
And previously, we'd limited those individuals from not able to charge more than 10% of the value of the property they recovered. Is that correct?
The current law is 10%, and the version that passed last year raised it to up to 30%.
30% was the version we passed last year?
Yes.
Okay. And that's where it is today in this bill.
Correct.
Okay. All right, that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And Representative Oliver.
There are companies that are hired in a similar manner to assets of an estate, and I cannot remember if there's a statutory commission limit on those companies. And then a follow-up question, you could answer them both at the same time. What percentage are the other states charging where your company is active?
Do you want me to take that one?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know the answer for the estate recovery one. I could certainly try to find that and get it to you. In terms of what other states are doing, Florida is currently at 30%, and I think if you asked in our conversations with the Department of Revenue, Florida is in many ways the gold standard because of the return rate of property that folks have seen there, and so this matches that. California is, I want to say, about 15, maybe 12%. It's less. They still have claimants designated representatives, but as a consequence, their return rate of property is significantly less than Florida's too. More than Georgia, but less.
I want to remember, I'm asking you because I really don't know if I'm right, that the estate recovery was in the neighborhood of 25% from the big company, Kemp Company out of Utah, but I'm not sure if I'm right about that.
I just don't know. I can try to find out.
Mr. Chairman, could I add something?
Yes.
When I was years ago, before I ever served in the legislature, my predecessor, Ellis Black, he sent me a text where my great-grandmother had unclaimed property. And I have never pursued it because I stay so busy and I need to. So if we pass this, I'll probably be one of the first people to utilize this service because, you all know how busy our lives are. People don't have to, and the rate is negotiated, and if you choose not to, there's big bold letters that says, you can do this yourself if that's what you decide to do.
I'm going to vote for it.
Okay.
I'm really thinking about what the commission is, how consistent we are with other states. And the difference between 10%, if I just came to you today and said, I'm going to go get your grandmother's mother for you, it'd be 10%, but under this, it'd be 30%.
Well, with my luck, it'll be an old snuff can or something.
Full of money, right?
Sentimental.
That's right,
Sentimental
yeah.
value. Sentimental value.
All right, I don't see any other questions. And I don't think we have anybody signed up to speak. All right, what's the will of the committee? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Bill passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What year were you committee counsel?
2006.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome. That's right.
Yeah, will you handle that?
Yes, we'll get that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Yes, sir. All right, Senator Williams, come on up.
If you don't mind if I bring my counsel over the lines
You
with
may,
me.
you may.
Feel like the Last Supper here.
It's, a former member of the House Undertaker Caucus here.
I beg your pardon?
I said a former member of the House Undertaker Caucus.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for my first time ever being here in this committee. Thank you for the opportunity. Have before you Senate Bill 168 as a sub 168 FA. Very simple bill. This just allows chiropractors to also file a lien to get paid along with other professionals, physicians, doctors, burn centers, hospitals. There was a friendly amendment on the floor of the Senate that made the bill even better, and it just passed unanimous on the Senate floor, that no filing of claim or lien under this part shall be enforceable unless the person, firm, hospital authority, or corporation operating a hospital, nursing home, physician practice, chiropractic practice, or traumatic burn care medical practice filing such claim or lien first submitted a claim to each health insurer of the injured person. What had happened, some hospitals, doctors, medical practices were not filing insurance claims And I didn't realize this. They were not filing the insurance claim. They were waiting on this settlement to happen so they could file a lien to get more of their money rather than taking what the insurance company would normally have in their payment schedule for a certain practice. And that's the extent of my law school. Any other legal question, we'll turn it over to my capable.
Mr. Valines,
Mr. Chairman, I waive unless there's questions. I will say the amendment made the bill much better because the patient and client is like to get more money at settlement as opposed to taking it off in the settlement time.
Right.
Because now they'll have to file the insurance before they can file the lien.
Right. All right, any questions by the committee? Oh, sorry. Representative Silcox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was just going to comment, isn't it true that chiropractors, just like physicians, cannot write off their bad debt? Isn't that correct?
It's the same it is with physicians.
That's what I thought. So this is really their only means of recourse if someone doesn't
Yes,
pay their
ma'am.
bills because they cannot write this off on
Yes,
their
ma'am.
on their as a business expense.
Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Reeves.
A big subset of this committee spent hours or days hearing various substances that relieve pain. Chiropractic, this is a much cleaner hearing, and I know a lot of people get pain relief from chiropractic services. So thanks for bringing this bill that helps keep people going to chiropractor rather than taking various substances that cause addiction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion of the bill? What's the will of the committee? Oh, sorry, hang on, got one.
I'll just
Representative Hong.
thank you, Mr. Chair, and Chairman, thank you for bringing this. I just want to mention I am actually dealing with this in one of my cases where the chiropractor didn't file an insurance claim, and so we're having to go through a lot of difficult things with my client, with the chiropractor, et cetera. So I think this is going to clear a lot of things up. So thank you.
Thank you.
With this passed, they'll have to file that insurance.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? What's the will of the committee? All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Bill
Chairman.
passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Who's your house sponsor on this?
Representative Leverett.
Leverett? Yeah, it's on the calendar. All right. Now, Senate Bill 19. Let's see, Senator Kirkpatrick, there you are. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm back.
Good to have you back.
The substitute that I have in front of me right now is LC 442382S. Is that the correct one?
That's correct one. That's what we
Okay.
have anyway.
So just briefly, I'll be brief because you've heard all this before. Senate Bill 19's been through a lot of changes. When I dropped the bill, I thought it was wrong that personal income in large dollar amounts was being kept in one of my counties by the court clerk and some other large counties, and in some cases without disclosure. After meeting with the clerks and hearing their concerns, I added a supplement of $7,500 in addition to the 50-50 split between the county and the clerk's office, with flexibility to adjust both the ratio and the supplement with a written agreement, and the same for the probate judges. The Senate amended it to raise the supplement for the clerks. There was a lot of testimony last time I was here, and when I presented it in this committee, the members wanted to use a different formula, as best I could tell, and that's what the substitute in front of you has. It maintains the disclosure to the county, which is a key part of this bill, and it adjusts the formula to 1/3 of the county, 1/3 to the clerk's office, and 1/3 can be kept as personal income with a cap of 50% of the base salary, if I'm understanding it right. I haven't had it in my hands for very long. And to me, the disclosure is key, and the formula is at the will of the committee, and I want to thank the committee for working on the bill.
All right. Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator, thank you for your willingness to work with me and the committee on this issue. And And one of the things that was just important to me as we move through this process is this isn't a mandatory function of the clerks, and a large number are doing this process really well and managing it very well. But we felt like it was important to keep your reporting requirements. It was important to put some guardrails around how the funds were spent, and so I appreciate your willingness to work with me on this. And so, just want to say that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the author? All right, do what? I've got 3 people signed up to speak, and we've heard, I think, from most of them. So I'll let those come back up, but we're going to keep it short. So if I can keep you all to 5 minutes at the most. All right. So I'll call up Judge Ann Jackson.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Good afternoon.
Thank you all for having me today. I am one of the few probate courts, or I'm the judge of one of the few probate courts in Georgia that does handle the passport function. That was in office or in place when I took office in 2009, so I inherited it. And I will say this about the proposed bill and its many iterations that we've been through so far. And I'm not quite sure where we are, but I've got it on my phone that it's a different version than it was this time last week. I would have been grateful for guidance back then for what to do with these funds. I had worked in a probate court for 28 years before that in Fulton County, became judge the next year in Fayette, and didn't know anything about passports. I learned quickly that there were really no guidelines on what to do with that money that was coming in. It was, again, a function that I inherited. Business boomed through the next few years. Because I wasn't sure what to do with this money, I did seek the advice of both an attorney recommended to me by the Constitutional Officers Association of Georgia and an accountant, and I set up a system for my office to continue doing the function. The present arrangement that we have in place is that half of the money, I keep the money that comes in is placed into an account with a separate tax number. Half of the money at the after payment of all of the postage fees, you've heard about the postage fees, half are paid, half the money after that is paid to the county general fund. A report is given monthly to the county manager, and the other half is kept in the probate court account, from which I make disbursements or authorize disbursements through a payroll service to both myself and my clerks as supplemental salary. What I told them, my clerks, when the business started getting so busy, was if you will do the extra work on top of all of our probate functions, which are varied, that you will be paid for this. Again, being uncertain because there was no guidance back then. I did seek legal counsel and accounting counsel and felt comfortable with the arrangement, and I still feel comfortable with the arrangement I have in place. That being said, it is not a simple issue. You are dealing with, not everybody is just a county employee. My employees are my employees. They are the employees of myself as a constitutional officer. Each constitutional officer at some point during their term makes a choice if they're going to keep the employees or turn them over to the county civil service process. Once that decision is made in a county, it is irrevocable. It has never been made in Fayette County, so they remain my employees, and I can determine what is fair for them to receive. The county is obligated to budget my office and to pay what they believe is fair for those clerks. They like to group my clerks in with every other court clerk or county clerk, but it's not an even exchange. So I don't know how many of the constitutional officers are keeping their employees as their own or how many have turned them over, but there's a difference. Some clerks are county employees, some are not, depending on the county. And I point that out just to say you're dealing with different entities here. It's not like every single person who may be getting funds off the passport money is just another county employee who's now being enriched beyond that of their peers in other departments. I have seen the different versions of the bill as it's come through. My caution is this: we're talking about both federal law, we're talking about the IRS, and we have 49 other states that also are dealing with this issue. I think that somebody's doing something in each one of those states that we could perhaps look to them for guidance of what has been done and could be done and should be done. Again, I would be grateful for some kind of a structure, but I don't think that it should be too rushed. I think there needs to be research. There needs to be contact with the IRS about what will the tax consequences. You've been told, I believe, I've watched all the hearings that I was not able to attend. It's supposed to be personal income to the individual who runs the office. Well, that's to me a little, if you're not getting it, why should you pay tax on it? No, that's I do not pay tax on every penny that is coming into the Fayette County Probate Court. However, the records are available, and so far we've been doing it. There has been no problem. It is, however, taxes are paid for any penny that goes out to an individual. But that's the kind of thing you need to be taking into consideration when you start now telling people that you have to pay this much to the county, you have to pay this much to the clerk. One last thing I want to point out is that each county is responsible for funding their constitutional officers. If we allow the county to say, okay, or if this bill allows it, the county, we get 1/3, but the other 2/3, 1/3 goes to fund the probate court office, and 1/3 goes directly to the judge or the clerk. I'm concerned that that's going to give the county a reason to say, well, you're getting this additional money from passports to run your office, so we're not gonna fund your budget for that amount. Now, my argument will be, well, the third that the county's getting is supposed to be reimbursing them for the expense of us running a passport office out of their building. But these are just issues that come up in my mind as I see this. I really have more, I'm more tossing more questions out there, I think, than coming up with what I'd like to see done or have solutions. But I'm still grateful for guidance on this from the legislature, and I told my county manager that as soon as this bill hit the table. So I thank Senator Kirkpatrick for bringing the issue up. I don't think it should be a knee-jerk thing. I think that term's been used a lot. The press gets a hold of this every 4 or 5 years. You see something in the news. I've followed it. I keep copies of the articles, and I'm wondering maybe one day somebody will tell us how we're supposed to do this, and I would look forward to that. It is work for my clerks. They must be trained. We have to maintain certain security things in place, and I believe in sharing with those that do the hard work. So that's mine. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you. Yes, we do. Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, thank you for being here with us, and thank you for shedding some light on a few things for me. Just to make clear, so today, you said you have a 50-50 split with your county?
After the payment of the postage expenses, and I pay them quarterly.
And you said do you report monthly to them?
Correct.
So, and I know you've looked at this bill too. So we're asking for quarterly reporting, but then I wanted to touch on one thing with you. You said right now you only pay income taxes on the funds that you keep as a personal payment for yourself.
That's correct. My payments are I have a bank account set up with a tax ID number. Any deposits from passports go into that account. Every 4 months, I give a monthly report to the county manager of what's been received. Every quarterly, they get a check, the quarterly report as well as the check written off that account. I'm the only person who can control that account. And then I will determine at that point what payments I will take for a quarter and what my clerks will get. I have a payroll service that runs those payments through that payroll service and does withholding and all of the other stuff. I've never been an employer, so I don't know what all's in there, but there's a lot. And they take care of all of that for me. So the records are out there, they're visible, and the county knows exactly what we're doing.
But you've never had a situation where the say it was $10,000 you collected just for a year, $10,000, and you sent $5,000 of it automatically to the county, say you kept 2,500 for yourself and then shared it over the rest of your clerks. You've never been subject to more than income tax on that 2,500 that you would have kept for yourself
That's
personally.
correct.
All right. So that's been one of the concerns I've heard. But how many years have you done this?
I took office in 2009, probably started this in about 11 or 12.
Okay.
And
So
it's
a
a
decade or
question.
so.
I would like to see the IRS answer this question. So you know,
Right.
we'll see where I end up.
But I think your record keeping and things like that are your accountant and your people who are
Yes.
obviously advising you on that says that you're taking the steps to protect yourself should the IRS come and audit
Right,
you
and
as
the-
best you can when they come bring
And
it
the
in.
taxes are
right.
coming out of the portions that are paid to my clerks. When it first started, and my county manager was kind of, we got a new county manager 2 or 3 years into my term, and he was grumbling about me paying my staff anything. And that was the complaint. He didn't want me supplementing my clerk staffs. And I'm saying, they're my employees. You pay them what you think they're entitled to, but if I take on this extra function, I'm a constitutional officer, I'm paying you for renting the space these passport people come in and stand in, and for the use of your electricity and stuff like that. But I can decide if they need this extra money. It came to about $8,000 each last year for my clerks. I don't take very much for myself, but that's just my personal preference, and I should. So I don't have an opinion about people that take more or less, but the taxes come off of what is given to that particular individual. Maybe I'll make IRS history. We'll see.
And if you want to keep the same arrangement with your county, there's still provisions in this bill that will allow you to still negotiate that with the county.
I cannot say that for sure with the current version because my vision is bad and my copy of the bill is very small.
Well, I wrote it.
But
I
if
think
it-
you'll be pleased
okay,
with what you see.
I did see the language. Thank you. Not that I can read it any better without a magnifying glass, but yeah, and I think so.
Mm-hmm. Lines 83 through 85.
83.
Yeah, 83 through 85 is the probate judge piece, but it mirrors up in the beginning sections for probate judges as well, or for clerks as well.
I had kind of a question, which was the last version was in the last hearing. My understanding, and I appreciate y'all having my associate judge here. I got called away on a family emergency. Was that the clerks were going to get there's going to be an off-the-top payment, a set amount, and that just went.
We've restructured all of that.
That discrepancy is what got our ears perked up, and like, wait a minute, it's the same job. But that's fine. But
We're treating
if that's in
everybody the
place-
same percentage, third,
Yeah.
third, or again by written agreement or back to General Assembly.
I have encountered no objection from my county. Same county manager since that time. We have made peace in the world, and again, I am a little concerned about the third of the payment being paid to the court for office purposes. I want to make sure that the county, don't say, well, we're reducing your budget by this much because of that, because you're getting this extra money from passports, and in a good year we'll get a lot, and in a bad year we won't get a lot. That's a little bit of a concern because that, in essence, equals out to 2/3 to the county. If they're getting credit for that second third toward our budget expenses, I just want to have enough to compensate my staff for doing this extra work.
And of course, you can ignore this whole bill if y'all just keep y'all's written agreement in place, and so it wouldn't even affect you.
Yeah, that's interesting, but I haven't talked to my county people since this all came into effect, and they're all at a meeting today. So,
Judge, thank you for being with us
Okay,
and for providing this additional service to our community.
Thank you.
All right. Representative Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should have asked Senator Kirkpatrick, do you support this sub? Okay. I think your problem about the county deducting expenses may be cured in lines 74 and 76. This shall be in addition to and not in lieu of the funds appropriated to the office. So that may solve that problem.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Just to understand, and Representative Vice Chair here told me that the lines 90 and 91 are required because you can't change your compensation during the term.
Correct.
As I understand, what this bill would do for you, assuming that you and your county didn't make another agreement, is that you would no longer be free to pay your clerks an amount that you determine you wish to pay them. Under this provision, it would go for the general office maintenance, or how do you interpret that section?
Well, because it was specifically mentioned in a prior version of this bill that we could not use it for salaries, and it is no longer mentioned, I will take the position, going out there like I do, that office function is paying my clerks extra money for the extra work they do. And I'm a constitutional officer, so I've got a little extra leeway over my people. It's a tight fit, I know that.
Forgive me for not being here for the earlier meetings, but is that y'all's interpretation?
That was my intention. If she she would have the flexibility to use it to supplement her staff, or if she needed to buy new equipment to help with this or whatever.
And I will say on behalf of some of the other, there's only 6 probate courts of the 8 that do passports. That 2 of them already give all of it to the county. Those are big counties. Some of the smaller counties are reaching out and looking to me to help them. And they don't take in very much. And they are using this money for their people. And that was very important to them, that this.
And that's my concern. I want you to be able to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Supplement for your clerks,
Right.
not to just to give to you as a discussion to buy a new IT system.
Yeah, I mean, one of the newspapers reached out to everybody and asked, what did you take personally in 2021? I took $5,000. We took in well over $200,000. That's what I do. So, but that's me, and there's a reason for that, and other people have reasons they may take more, keep more.
One more, Ms. Jack. I'm just curious about this. I have no way of knowing how many of the counties out there will just redraw their own deal, regardless of what you pass.
Well, I don't know about the clerks' deals and that kind of thing. Probate judges, it is such an informal thing now anyway, because there were never any rules in place to tell us how to do it. I think everyone you go to's got some different arrangement in place. So who knows what they've got in place, and who knows how they'll interpret what going forward. Again, just give thought to the ramifications. One, the power of the constitutional officer, not. And also that it is it is a federal function, and so they're kind of always hanging over our heads. Well, what do we do with them? How do we address them?
Thank you
do they
very
mean
much.
it? Thank you. Anything further?
Vice Chair Reeves.
Judge Jackson, there was some testimony at the last hearing that there's one city that collects passport fees, and it's Floor Leader Hong's in my city, Sugar Hill. Confirmed with them they're doing it, it's working. But I'm curious, this relates to a pending tax commissioner bill, because tax commissioner of Fulton County is, the one who gets the most private money,
Right.
and that's been the case for a long time. It's House Bill 290. Do you have cities in your area that pay extra money to the tax commissioner in your area or in adjacent counties?
I do not know. I apologize for my ignorance.
You don't know that system?
I do not know.
But you've got cities in Fayette County other than
We
Fayetteville?
do. We have several municipalities.
All right. I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate the senator's leadership on this issue, and look forward to dealing with the tax commissioner issue in addition to this one. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me.
Representative Alford.
Real quick.
Anything further?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I think you said that you received about $200,000 in, for lack of a better term, income on this?
Yes, it's the passport acceptance agent fee, that $35 per passport that is paid to the passport agency.
And approximately how much did you have in expenses? For example, the postage, et cetera?
Whew, that one's tough because it varies depending on the number of applications. We are averaging right now about, if I'm not mistaken, we're probably averaging $3,000 to $4,000 a month in postage. It's
Okay.
coming off the top. So but that's now. I mean, it wasn't a couple of years ago, but it's postage has just gotten crazy, and so it is 3 or 4. I would be comfortable saying $2,000 to $3,000 a month in postage.
And are there other fixed expenses, or would the expenses depend by county?
There's really not any other fixed expense. I mean,
Okay.
they come in with an application. They've got their own pictures. We don't take pictures, so it's pretty much just my clerk standing at the window, helping them make sure the applications are completed properly, watching them execute them, and taking them in. And then we have duties after the customer leaves as far as the proper way to secure those and get them off to the State Department within a day.
Okay. And without trying to make this too complicated, I imagine that for the postage, there would be records of those that you would
Absolutely.
have to demonstrate the expenses, right?
We have a dedicated credit card. We have to buy our postage through a credit card thing, so we have credit card records for every single it is used for nothing other than that. It is only used for passport postage. So we have records going back for the entire time.
Okay,
for the
thank you.
postage.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the reason why I'm asking this is the allocation that is currently set in the bill is for the fees to be allocated, and I'm raising the question of whether or not we should have a deduction of the expenses from that before the allocation is set.
That's what I'm doing now. In other words, before we give the county their portion, they know. I give them figures every month. This is what we took in. This was the postage for that month. And of course, that report comes out a week or two after the first of the month. And then at the quarterly, but we are doing that now, and I would recommend, I would be pleased with that if that was a provision for that.
Right, because with the money that's paid, the $35, the postage never comes anywhere near that. So you're always making a profit, for lack of a better term.
I've
right?
never broken it down. I just never did. But we just keep it. But the postage is significant. Well, I would say also that the business is significant. It has just gotten
Right.
enormous.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yep, hang on. Whip Burchett?
One more question. I thought I heard in your testimony earlier that you told the county manager that you were renting the space from them.
I didn't tell him that. It was more the concept of, I'm paying you part of this. It's not a formal rental agreement. There's no such thing as that. Just the concept of, I'm paying you half because we're using your courthouse. And this is compensating the county for the use of your space. That's kind of what it is.
So you're paying $17 out of the $35 already to the county?
I haven't done the math, but I am, yes. And taking the postage off the top, whatever's left after that monthly postage or weekly or whatever we do, yes, I'm paying it after that to them.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Reeves.
Judge Scoggins could not be here for the meeting, but he did want to report that the Senate passed House Bill 290 out of committee, and it appears to be headed to the floor. So thank you, Senator.
Okay. All right, I think that's
anything
all the
further?
questions. Thank you.
So much for your time.
Todd Edwards, ACCG.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, I'm Todd Edwards with the Association of County Commissioners. We've testified before. You've heard a lot. I'll just go in summary. We do believe that this substitute bill being offered, we did review it, is a good compromise. It's obviously a bill like this. It's gone back and forth, many reiterations. We believe this is fair. At the core of the issue, is it right? The questions have been asked for all this money, in some cases, to be kept as personal compensation. If you don't believe it is, I think the question is, how do you come up with an equitable formula? I believe this legislation does it. I do have the third, if anyone has questions on some of the larger counties, if a third of it would be about, say they're bringing in $200,000 in fees. A third of it could be up to, let's say, $60,000 as personal compensation. 50% of those base salaries, that's $130,000, so that could be kept as the clerk. Also, the funding could go back. The 1/3 that goes back to the clerk's office for the staff that assist in processing these, and then to the county, as was mentioned earlier by the judge, for the space, the overhead, the other expenses which are incurred. I could say a lot. I won't, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I think Senator Kirkpatrick summed it up well. And I learned a lot also from the judge's previous testimony. I did appreciate that.
Vice Chair Reeves.
You fill some of us in on your efforts in support of the tax commissioner reform since the last meeting, and I appreciate what you did on that.
Sure, and I was hoping to break the news for Scoggins. Yes, it did pass out. Representative Scoggins, it did pass out of committee with our full support. We've been happy to work with him on that, and hopefully it will make it to the floor soon. We're trying to line up that rules ask to get it out of Rules Committee to the floor.
All right, I see no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tiana Gardner.
Good afternoon. My name is Tiana Garner. I'm the clerk of Superior Court in Gwinnett County.
Well, I do agree with a lot of what Judge Jackson from Fayette County stated. One of the biggest concerns was that this amendment seems as though 2/3 is going to the county. And I understand what you pointed out, Representative Oliver. That's still a concern for clerks. This is a practice has been in practice in the state of Georgia since 1968. It was solidified with the Attorney General's opinion in 1983. And the federal law didn't really contemplate payment to the county. It states that the $35 execution fee was for personal income. You have several clerks. I think about 45% of us in the state are acceptance agents, and most of us do offer a split with our counties. And so I did want to point that out. I know Representative Kelly said that this seeks to treat both probate judges and clerks the same, and I wanted to point the committee's attention to, I think it's lines 90 and 91 of the amendment. That subsection 2 is there for the probate judges in terms of when it becomes effective, but that subsection is not there under the clerk section. And so those were pretty much the only points that I had to make, and I could take questions.
Representative Oliver.
This question may be for the gentlemen that have been worked on the sub, but there was no specific reason that the clerks were not added to the effective date as were the probate judges. Yes or no?
I think the legal issue is you can't cut a judge's pay in their term. I think that was the distinction.
But that was not true for the clerk?
Right. I think legislative council put it in for probate judges, but not clerk of court. Right.
But
if we didn't have to, it would be there.
But we are therefore treating the clerks and the probate judges differently because of that. Is there any policy reason we would treat the probate judges differently from the clerks in terms of the implementation of the statute, in your opinion?
I think clerks handle money more frequently and do accounting, whereas the judges, there's a different set of rules about the judges handling money, I think,
Sure.
and as well as compensation. Now, I'm only speculating as to why legislative council would put it in for the judge, but I do know that they saw it as different, judges versus clerks.
And I understand the legislative council putting it in for the judges, and it has to be there by law. But there's nothing that prohibits you from adding that for the clerks, that same provision.
That's why I'm thinking. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. That's why I'm thinking. Why would we treat them differently, and just in terms of setting up the rules? That's what I'm just asking myself. And y'all didn't talk about that when you were looking at the language.
And I don't believe, and I know we just talked a lot about House Bill 290 passing. I don't believe that. I believe that same provision is also in effect in that bill for the tax commissioner. So the Fulton County tax commissioner, who seems to be a lot of what the concern about, is not affected either. At least the most recent copy of House Bill 290 that I read, the tax commissioner has the same protections. And so I would just ask for that same consideration.
May I ask the
for clerks.
sponsor whether she would object to treating the clerk and the probate judge the same?
I do not object to that.
I'll take that friendly amendment too, that's fine.
Vice Chair Reeves.
The local legislation and the contract provision in the substitute, that's something you've had a number of Gwinnett County local delegation members in these two hearings, and the county and the probate judge, it seems like, are aware of the way you've handled the money and approve of it. So those are two ways under the substitute that there could be differences based on particulars in Gwinnett than statewide. So just wanted to point out that from this draft.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, what's the pleasure of the committee? Got a motion? Do I hear a second? Got a motion and a second. Any amendments? Are you 16?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have amendments, or at least something I'd like to discuss with the committee. And it is this issue of whether or not we should have an offset as the bill for expenses, because we've heard about the postage expense, if that should reduce the allocation. So what I would propose would be, one, to have that disclosed in the reports. So add to line 31 and where's the last one? There's two. 34, or well, on line 31 would be to add the report shall also disclose postage expenses, and then on 66, same thing. So this report shall also disclose postage expenses, so that way it's disclosed to the public what those expenses are. And then I would further propose just adding in less postage expenses after the word fees on line 34, 37, 42, 69, 72, and 77. So where there's the allocation of the fees, just to have the offset for the expenses, which seems fair. So I would, if there's interest in that, then I would make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I got an amendment with a second. All right, any further discussion on that? That amendment? Who's 18? Oh, Representative Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're talking about 1/3 of the total fee minus the expense, or 1/3 of the difference between the fees and the postage expenses? There's probably one of those that makes it's obvious to everyone else, but I just want to make sure I understand. I understand what the amendment is. I don't understand what the ultimate mathematical effect of it is. In other words, are we saying we're taking we're taking the total fee, dividing it by 3, and then subtracting the postage expenses, or are we taking the fee minus postage expenses and then dividing that difference by 1/3?
We would take the fee. Actually, that's a very good question.
I have an idea that might alleviate the problem and also require a little bit less language. If on line 25 and whatever the equivalent is on the postage, on the probate judges, if like on line 25, if we just did after the word fees, comma, less postage cost or whatever, put it there, because that's all that's going to be subject to the division, and then we don't have to put it in 9 different places or 6 places, and then we don't have to worry about that math. I think.
Representative Kelly.
I was going down the same road Representative Evans was, but I was looking at doing it on line 33. So it would read, the clerk of the Superior Court shall remit fees, sums, and other remunerations collected less postage expenses pursuant to this paragraph as follows.
So Representative Hawkins, you wish to withdraw your amendment?
I would like to withdraw and adopt the Kelly amendment.
So you move for the amendment, the Kelly amendment.
Yeah, 68 as well.
We're getting there.
Is there a second on that? Second. All right, got motion and second on the Kelly, we'll call it the Kelly Evans amendment. Or Evans Kelly, okay. Give her top billing. She spoke first.
Certainly deserves it.
Any further discussion on that amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, got that amendment on. Representative Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The intent of the amendment I'm going to offer is to treat the clerks of the Superior Court the same way that we treat the probate courts in terms of the effectiveness of the statute, and therefore the language of that's set forth in 90 and 91. This shall read, the subsection shall not apply to any clerk of the Superior Court who is serving his or her term of office on January 1st, 2024 during said term of office. That language should be inserted, and I'm happy to be corrected on this, following line 54 with a new paragraph E is what I think would be correct. And the law clerk, the legislative council is nodding affirmatively. That's the amendment I wish to offer. Did I say it right?
Oh, there it is. 4. Yeah. Okay, 4.
So the language that I'm about to read will be designated as paragraph 4, following line 54. And the language is, the subsection shall not apply to any clerk of a superior court who is serving his or her term of office on January 1st, 2024 during such term of office.
Everyone understand the amendment? All right.
I move.
You got a motion? Is there a second? Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion of this amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any further discussion of the bill? Any other amendments? All right, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Do pass.
Just to be clear on the Evans-Kelly amendment, we were adding the postage fees in the probate section as well, was my original amendment, right?
Correct.
Yeah. 68 as well, yeah. Just clarifying that with the legislative council.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Have one opposed. The bill passes. Goes on to rules. Thank you.
Thank you. So Representative Carson is the House Marshal.
All right. Thank you. All right. That's everything we had today. This should be all the bills that we have in House duty for this year. This is probably our last meeting. So we adjourn.